sports fans. Welcome to Ram Zone. Watch your favorite coaches and players talk about the games, the plays, and the moments that define your favorite ASU teams. Now your host, Cameron Allen.
Happy to have you here, and let's go ahead and get started. Just tell us a little bit about your background coaching, your playing career maybe, how it led here to Angelo State.
Yeah, so I started coaching pretty much right after my undergrad. I was a decent player. I was okay. My plan was to go to Texas A&M. That's why I really wanted to go, and I got accepted to the business school there, and I had a lot of friends going there. So I was going to go there, and I was going to try to be a walk-on on the tennis team. And they happened to be top 10 in the country in D1 that year, and I quickly realized that I was not going to be able to contribute to that team. So my kind of playing, career and ambitions ended right there. And so I just went through undergrad just like as a regular student. I was friends with most of the guys on the team. I was actually roommates with some guys on the team. So I was still very much kind of in that environment. But I was just, just kind of like a regular student. And then as I got to be a senior in college, I realized like I didn't want to just go get a boring job right then. So I had known the coaches, and I was like, hey, like, would you guys be interested in having like someone around to help the team? And they're like, well, why don't you like work our camps and stuff this summer, and then we'll see how it goes. And it went well. I started on as a GA for the men's team at A&M for 2 years. So that would have been 05, 06, 07. And then I've just been doing it ever since. Coached privately at a tennis academy, the John Newcomb Tennis Academy in New Braunfels, Texas. It's like a boarding academy, like where kids from all over the country and all over the world come to just train kind of typically like during their high school years to get ready either for a career as a professional, hopefully, or to get prepared for college tennis. So did that for about 3 years. And in that time, I was also doing like the college placement for the juniors and seniors to like help them get recruited by teams. And so it was during that period where I made a lot of good contacts with college coaches and ended up getting offered the position to be the assistant coach at University of Missouri. I was there for 4 years. Wanted to come back home to Texas, took the assistant coach job at U of H for 2 years. And then after 8 years as assistant, I felt like I was ready to maybe take on my own team. So I applied for some head coaching positions. I got the head coaching job at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Was the head coach there for 5 years. And then after that, I had been kind of out of Texas for 12 of the last 15 years. And I told my wife, I was like, I really want to move back to Texas. I don't really care, what job comes open. I don't care D1, D2, D3. I want to, move back to Texas, and I want to have my own team at a place I believe in, a place that I feel comfortable in. And this position came open here at Angelo State, and was fortunate to get it 2 years ago now, and so that's where we are.
And your first season here 2 years ago, great record, 19-6, I believe, 8-0 at home, which that's huge. You don't get a lot of home matches, I guess, during the season.
Yeah, not a ton.
And how do you think that first season has really helped set you up for the future, maybe? Team players that you're trying to recruit, look at the record and say, I want to go play there.
Yeah, I mean, the first year, like, I'm not going to lie, it was very important, I feel, for us to do well in that first year. I mean, a lot of times when you go to a new school, or people will say it's going to be a rebuilding year, or it's going to take a while to get your players in, or whatever. But I knew that this team was very good. They had success previously, so I was like, I certainly don't want to mess it up and like not be able to carry on the success that this team had been having. So to have a successful first year, with players that I didn't recruit and players who didn't commit to me. So there was definitely like a getting to know each other process, and kind of getting to know like them individually as players and their personalities and, kind of how the team was. There were definitely some changes for me. There was definitely some changes for them. but to be able to have a pretty successful first year, I think, sets us up for success going forward, hopefully. Like I said, I mean, the team had been successful previously too. So I think what it shows is that you can have a successful team here that's not just based on one coach, not just based on one recruiting class. I mean, this is a athletic department and a tennis program where we should strive to be successful every year.
Tennis is a sort of a sport, a lot of one-on-one between player and coach. Do you have a routine maybe for chemistry between yourself and players, and maybe a team chemistry, any type of routine or anything y'all go through?
I mean, really, everything we do is based on chemistry. I feel really, really strongly that to have a strong team, the chemistry within the team has to be good. The relationship between player and coach has to be really strong and built on trust and openness. And so, we do a ton of communicating within our team. We don't have like separate groups, like separate cliques or anything. And that's not always a negative thing. Sometimes, in football, maybe you got the offense and the defense, or in baseball, you got the pitchers and the, the rest of the, fielders. And, for us, it's like everyone plays every position. There's no separation there. You have freshmen and sophomores and juniors and seniors, but like I don't really like make my freshmen go through like an initiation. I don't let my seniors get to make all the decisions. I mean, I think with tennis being the way it is, most of them come up in a individual environment. With tennis being an individual sport, and sometimes you just having your own personal coach for maybe 10 years and, being used to doing everything your own way. When you get into a team environment, it can definitely be like a culture shock. Not only the fact that like a lot of the team is international, so coming over here is a culture shock as it is. So, it's very important for me to make this be a place where they feel comfortable, where they know that they can communicate, where they know they're going to be taken care of, they know they're going to be welcomed by their teammates. So really, like, it all starts, like, once I decide that I'm signing a player and bringing them in, as soon as we possibly can, like, by rule, I start communicating with them and have them start communicating with the team so that they all know each other already before they get here, so that there is not that kind of, like, awkward time of, like, getting to know each other. And then, we don't really have, like, team bonding retreats or anything. It's like everything we do is team bonding. Every practice, every van ride, every team meal, everything we do is based on chemistry and culture. So it's just part of what we do every day.
I think that's a great philosophy you've had. You're the second coach Angelo State has had since the program got restarted in 2017, I believe. Yep. What does it mean to you, your new philosophy coming in? You got the Ramblers their first conference tournament match victory since you've been here. What does that mean to be the first here at Angelo State in that?
Well, I mean, like, when I saw this position came open, I did some research on how they had been, because I know that they had restarted the program. At the time, it was 5 years ago. That was actually when I took the job at Milwaukee. So me going there kind of coincided with this program starting back up. And so when I saw the position came open, I'd done some research, and I was like, wow, they've done well from a program just kind of being restarted, which is kind of a little bit how I felt about that position at Milwaukee, because I made kind of like a lot of changes there. And so I was like, wow, they had pretty immediate success. I mean, they either won the conference regular season or shared first place for the conference regular season, I think 2 or 3 years. But then the one thing I did notice was that they always lost in the first round of the conference tournament. And I was like, that's weird. Like, how do you have so much success in the regular season and then not be able to advance in the conference tournament? Like, it's not easy to advance in the conference tournament, but a team that's always successful in the regular season, you'd think that'd be something that they would accomplish. And I don't know if you could say it was about one thing or even two things. It's maybe just like, I had just come off of a season at Milwaukee where we made it to our first ever conference tournament championship match, and we lost a close one 4-3, and it was kind of a heartbreaking thing, because that was also, I knew that was my last match there, and the team knew that was my last match with them. And so to have that heartbreak, the reason there's so much heartbreak there is because of all the things you went through and because of the accomplishments along the way. And so that was something that we started talking about very early last year in my first season, was like, we are going to be successful in the postseason. I'm not going to say we're going to win it the first year. I'm not going to put any, real expectations other than the fact that we are going to be preparing ourselves for the postseason the whole time. And so to get those wins, to kind of, we had played Tyler in the last match of the regular season, and then we had to play them again like 5 days later in the conference tournament, and then advanced to the semifinals where we had to play Cameron, who were the 1 seeds, and they'd been top 10 in the country. They'd beaten us 4-3 at their place in the regular season. To be able to flip that and beat them and to get to the finals, we had to play St. Mary's, who's always a very strong team, a team we had lost to 4-3 in the regular season at their place. And so at one time, we literally had match points on 2 different courts after having already won the doubles point and another match. So at one point, we were literally 30 seconds away from winning the conference championship. And in tennis, you can't just get close enough. Like, you can't get close to the end, build up a big lead, and then run out the clock. Like, you have to finish it. And we just didn't quite do it. And then we had to pick ourselves up because we were playing the NCAA tournament, 8 days later against the same team we had just lost to in the conference championships. So that's just part of, going through a postseason with the team is where you really, really kind of solidify, all the things that you accomplished during the year. And that just kind of like playing on back-to-back days, being able to play, hopefully win, and then being able to like recover, refocus, and go out and try to do the same thing the next day against probably an even more difficult team. That's where you really do show like not only the strength of your players, like the level of their tennis, but that's where you show the strength of a team being able to, rally around each other and get yourself picked up for another tough day after battling for 4 hours the day before.
Yeah, the postseason's always tough. You were saying before you got here, it looked like they struggled as soon as postseason came around. It kind of sounds like my Cowboys.
Yeah.
Hate to say it. But I was wondering, since you've gotten here, it's been a pretty smooth transition. What do you think are some unique strengths and aspects of the Angelo State athletic program?
Well, I think the athletic department as a whole it's just extremely competitive. Like almost every sport has either won a national championship or competed for a national championship, and certainly conference championships and regional championships. There's an expectation that your team should have success here because we have a ton of resources here. We have a ton of support from the community. My last 2 positions, I had been in, bigger cities. I had been in Milwaukee and in Houston, where your little team of 8 kind of can get lost in the shuffle a little bit. Yeah. And to be here, like I love a smaller town. I love a college town. That's where ultimately that's one of the big things that I liked about this, because in San Angelo you've got everything you need, but you're not going to get lost in the shuffle. And so to be in a place where you get a ton of support from the community, from the alumni, having our athletic director, Coach Reed, being a former coach here, having our President Hawkins, being a former student athlete here, the people who are, kind of at the top, they know what you're going through as a coach. They know what your student athletes are going through, and incredible support from fellow coaches as well. You always will get text messages from coaches after a big win, and you'll try to, catch them in the hallways, after a weekend to ask them, how they felt about their game, that the day before or whatever. And so it's really a place where certainly you're expected to be successful, but we also have everything we need to be successful, and there's a blueprint. If it's not like the way your program was before you got there, it's the way some other program that you share hallways with, and you get to know their coaches. So there's always someone to, kind of celebrate with, someone to commiserate with. If you things don't go your way, there's always someone to kind of pick you up and help you out. So I think that's one thing that definitely makes this place very special.
And you were talking about how you'll get texts from other coaches. I always like to hear how coaches of similar sports maybe collaborate with each other. Mm-hmm. Like last week we had both basketball coaches. Yep. I've interviewed baseball and softball. Mm-hmm. There's not a men's team or like a men's team coach you can collaborate with. Yeah. Do you think there's any struggles or strength collaborating with different sports?
Well, I mean, like I'm massive into sports. I played every sport growing up. Tennis was actually the last sport that I actually kind of took seriously. I mean, I played soccer, baseball, basketball. Played football in middle school before I realized I wasn't going to get any bigger. And so sports are huge to me. My dad was in college athletics. My brother was in college athletics. So it's been something that has just been around me forever. So I follow, I follow the teams that I used to coach at. I follow, the school I graduated from. I follow the school my parents graduated from. And I follow all of our teams here because, I just truly believe that, like, college athletics is one of kind of like the greatest institutions we have in America. And, like, it's really, like, a way to – because it's the only place that we have it, right? You can't do sports and academics at the same time at any sort of, like, serious level anywhere else except for here. And so to be a part of it and to be around other people who are part of it who have also, like, pretty much dedicated their whole professional lives to to being in this thing. I speak with the coaches that are here and Coach Reed, our athletic director, and of course like other coaching friends of mine who are at other schools, other coaches I've coached with or coached against. We're always kind of checking each other's results to see how their weekend went. And, if they have a bad couple weeks, you check on them and you're always happy to hear from them when they, send you something on social media or a text message. So, yeah, collaborating with coaches, not only for like successes and then, picking you up when you've had a rough week, but to talk about, kind of where you're recruiting this summer and what are some kind of trends that you're seeing, talking about scheduling, that kind of thing. Collaborating with other coaches both in your sport and in other sports is very helpful.
And you were talking about there's not a higher level to where a student can do academics and compete seriously in their sport.
Yeah.
What are the struggles and maybe benefits of having student athletes and balancing their academic and athletic life?
One thing that I'll brag on my team is we've had like the highest GPA, of the sports programs the last couple of years, and especially with tennis players, that's a pretty common thing. Just because tennis players, if you're playing at a high level, you're not just playing for your high school, like you're not just playing locally, you're traveling all across the state or the country or the world, especially in tennis. And so, some of these girls on the team have been, taking trains to go play tournaments, flying to go play tournaments, doing things, on their own without their parents. They've been doing this kind of thing since they were maybe 14 years old, maybe even younger. So they are typically very good at managing their time. They're very very good at kind of separating, like, I'm thinking about tennis while I'm on the court, but then when it's time to move on to studying or whatever, then I'm going to focus on that. And then I've got to make sure I stay on top of my school so that when I do have a big weekend of matches, that's not in the back of my head, like, oh, I didn't do this assignment yet, or I'm not prepared for this exam. We have very, very good students in demanding majors, throughout the athletic department, for sure. But on this team especially, they get all the support they need, certainly, from the department, and I definitely, I'm always kind of checking in on how school's going. Like, is going to be a rough week with you with studying for exams? Like, do you need to maybe take a day off from practice because you want to go to an extra review or whatever. And then I certainly, they're always studying in the van on rides, and, encourage them to, to make sure they stay on top of that stuff because, obviously that's the, primary reason they're here is to get a degree and prepare themselves for, the rest of their lives, from a, job standpoint. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, the reason that they have that ticket to be here is because of not only their ability as an athlete, but their kind of, love for their sport. And so I want to make sure that they stay on top of their academics. So, of course, they, stay eligible to compete and they're on the path to graduation. But I want them to stay on their academics so that when it's time to play, they don't have to have in the back of their mind being worried about not being prepared for school. So it's like, make sure you take care of that because this weekend we got 2 big matches and I want you to be able to dedicate your focus to that on, Friday and Saturday.
I probably need to get on a better time management like some of your players. But while we're on the train of bragging on them, you had some Lone Star Conference standings at the end of the season. What were some notable achievements in terms of individual awards for some players your first year here?
Yeah, so last year, we finished second in the regular season. We finished second as runners-up in the conference championship tournament. And then individually, yeah, definitely had some big honors. Dianella Rodriguez, who was a senior last year, she won Conference Senior of the Year.
Yeah.
She won Conference Player of the Year, and that was back-to-back for her. She'd also won it the previous year. She ended the season ranked number 6 in the nation, which was the highest ever individual ranking we've had here. She was an All-American, which was our second All-American in singles. Just an incredible, season for her. And then we also had Letizia Corsini, who is playing number 1 for us right now as a sophomore. She won Lone Star Conference Freshman of the Year last year. She was ranked as high as like top 30 something in the nation as a freshman. We had multiple, Lone Star Conference Player of the Weeks, and then multiple. Dianella was first team all conference in singles. Letizia was second team all conference singles. Eva Schwartz, who's a senior for us now, fortunately we're going to get her for a 5th year as well. She was honorable mention, Lone Star Conference singles. And then we also had Eva and Mika Vandeventer were second team all conference doubles, and Letizia and Dianella were honorable mention all conference doubles last year. And to have so many different recognitions for so many players, and also too, it's like the way it kind of works sometimes is if you're playing a little bit lower in the lineup, it's harder to get some of those accolades. Yeah. But I mean, we had girls who played 4, 5, and 6 for us who also had like incredible seasons, who also probably deserve just as much to get some individual accolades. So really, last year was a great year. Maybe even magnified by some of the firsts that we had, and the fact that there was, new coaching staff coming in, and really the team being able to buy into like stuff that I was having them do that they had never done before, and having them think in certain ways about certain things that they maybe hadn't before. The fact that they were so resilient to do that, and then so resilient to be able to, lose matches to teams in the regular season and then bounce back and be able to do better against them in the conference tournament. That just shows, kind of a lot of growth on their part for sure.
And if you keep piling up these individual awards for your players, hopefully soon you're going to get a Lone Star Coach of the Year.
Maybe. I think typically you pretty much got to win the conference to be able to do that. I think we have a shot at it this year, but we'll see. I mean, I've never won a conference coach of the year or anything, and I don't really care if I ever do. It'd be, recognition is always nice, but that's why I tell the team about, getting, where our team ranking is in the middle of the season, right? Like, it's nice to be recognized for where you are at the moment, but it's like, if you're trying to like put an ultimate stamp on the season, you got to walk away with a trophy, and that's really kind of like the most important thing for me, is to help the team have a chance to lift a trophy at the end of the year. However it is, however deep we go, like I want them to be able to feel the fact that they are like ultimately the champions of one of the things that's meant so much to them.
And y'all have got a good shot this year. I've been keeping up a little bit. Are there any teams in the conference ranked real high? As of right now, I haven't looked quite at rankings.
Yeah, so we did lose a very close 4-3 match this past weekend to Midwestern State, who's number 3 in the nation. We may have let one slip away there. I mean, we lost the doubles point against them. That was only the second time all season we've lost the doubles point. And it was very close. And then, the team was able to pick themselves up after that disappointment, because again, we don't lose a doubles point very often, and they picked themselves up really well and like just marched into singles and got 3 big wins. And then we were just 1 singles win short, from being able to pull off the comeback. So that was tough. Midwestern's a very good team. I think we're right there with them. We did beat Cameron earlier in the season. They were a preseason top 10 team. We just beat LCU this past weekend. They've been as high as, I think maybe they were top 10 at one point earlier in the season. We'll play St. Mary's this weekend, 11 o'clock Saturday morning, who, again, was a top 10 team last year. I think they've been as high as definitely top 15 earlier this season. So the Lone Star Conference is very tough.
Yep.
There are a lot of very, very tough teams in this conference. There's talented players in this conference. There's good coaches in this conference. So but we still have a lot of goals in front of us for this season. You can only win one match at a time. So that's kind of our biggest focus right now is St. Mary's this weekend, because that's a team that got the better of us last season. And, we get them at home this year, where, I don't believe in jinxes or anything, so I'll go ahead and say it. Like, we've been undefeated at home the last 2 seasons, and I think we play well here at home. I think we get support here. I think the conditions can sometimes be tough here, and we handle them well. So yeah, there's no question about it. Like, this weekend's going to be a big test for us against a really good team, and if we're able to get away with that one, it sets us up to be seeded highly for the conference tournament, where, again, I think, we would likely get a chance to avenge that loss to Midwestern from earlier in the season. We're going to see them again at some point, probably either in the conference tournament or in the, NCAA regionals. So yeah, we still have a lot of goals in front of us and a lot of opportunities. And the good thing about, this conference, if you can come through the Lone Star Conference with a lot of wins and feeling good about yourself, that's going to set you up for the NCAA tournament, just because there's so many good teams.
And Lone Star Conference, I feel like it's one of the most competitive D2 in all sports.
Yes,
really.
It is, for sure.
You coach D1. How competitive was that conference, and maybe what's the difference in your competition from D1 to D2?
Mm-hmm. So when I came here, I had never seen a D2 tennis match before. I'd always I'd been at D1 schools as a grad assistant, an assistant, and a head coach, and at various different levels, right? I mean, I was at Texas A&M, one of the biggest athletic departments in the country, and ton of resources, and you're basically able to recruit whatever player in the world you want to recruit. And then competing against top teams in the country. I mean, the assistant coach at Missouri, where we were in the Big 12, and that was when we made the transition from Missouri being in the Big 12 to the SEC.
Yeah.
So then, as if the Big 12 wasn't hard enough at that point, then you're playing Florida and Georgia and Vanderbilt and Tennessee and Ole Miss, and at any given time, any given season, 10 of the top 25 teams in women's tennis are going to be in the SEC.
Yeah.
And so that's just like an absolute meat grinder. I mean, you could go into the beginning of the SEC season feeling, great, being ranked, top 40 in the country, and then you might lose 10 of your conference matches. And then that's a tough thing for a team to handle, to be a good team, but then to know that, like, when it comes to your conference, you're maybe really not all that good. And then, and then at Milwaukee, definitely like a mid-major situation, being in the Horizon League. And, Milwaukee historically was one of the worst teams in that league in tennis, for sure. And so I knew when I got there that, like, we had nowhere to go but up. And with, just bringing in some talented players and getting the culture, to be headed in a better direction, I knew we'd be able to make progress there. My first season there, we didn't even qualify for our conference tournament. And then we're able to slowly make the climb, 4th place, 3rd place. I think the COVID year, I think we had a real chance to win the whole thing, because we had a great culture and we had some seniors on that team. So not to be able to have that season was really frustrating, because I think we could have won it all that year. But then to finish in that last season with a chance to win the conference championship, which that was the first time Milwaukee had ever been past the semifinals in the conference, and to be just a handful of points away from being able to win a championship there. The level's very competitive in each kind of like little universe that you're in. It's very competitive, right? Like, you're not going to expect, mid majors or low majors to compete with Power Fives.
Yeah.
That's not completely realistic. I would say that you could easily compare top level D2 programs to very competitive D1s. Obviously the scholarship situation is different. In D1 women's tennis, you can have 8 full scholarships, and in D2 you have 6, but you can spread them out to more players. And so it's very hard for a team. Like in D1, you could literally have all of your players on the same scholarship and roughly at the same talent level. In D2, it's a little bit more difficult to do that typically. But I will definitely say, like, I the level that we play at in the Lone Star Conference, the level of the other top D2 teams in the country. It's very, very good tennis, and there's a ton of parity, and the competition is just very, very fierce every week. So it's a battle every single week. It's a battle, the schedule that we play.
Yes, sir, and perfect timing. That wraps up our show. Guys, thank you for watching Ram Zone. Y'all are going to be here 11 a.m. at home versus St. Mary's, revenge match from last year.
Yep.
But come back next week, Thursday at 12:30. We'll have the track coach, Coach Tom DeBurn.